Hey guys, for those of you who've been here for a while, you might remember I mentioned something back when we hit 1,000 subs. I've actually been working on that studio for a while now, and it's finally coming together. I'm going to be able to do proper voiceovers with studio level quality, and I'm getting a studio quality mic too, so I'm really excited about how everything's going to sound. That only happened because of you. So thank you for watching, for sticking around, and for supporting the videos. It really means a lot. Some stories don't start out scary at all. They feel normal, familiar even. But the more they unfold, the more something just feels off, like there's a piece missing that you can't quite figure out. These are the kinds of stories that don't really give you answers. They just leave you thinking about them long after they're over. Before we get into it, quick thing. I always keep names and exact locations vague or changed. Even if they're included, I don't like putting that kind of information out there. It just feels better keeping it private. And if you ever have something you want to share, just make sure it's your own experience, something real that actually happened. Also, let me know if you want credit or if you'd rather stay anonymous. Either way is completely fine. This all happened when I was living in this smaller town, and there was this yearly thing they did, like a street festival. People setting up tables and tents and selling things they made at home, candles, baked stuff, wood carvings, all that. I used to go every year just to walk around and waste time. I didn't have much going on back then. I worked at this print shop that did flyers and business cards. I wasn't really looking to meet anyone or anything like that. I had just gotten out of something not long before that, and I wasn't trying to repeat it. I was standing near this booth where a woman was selling handmade soaps, and I only remember that because of the smell, like strong lavender. That's when he came up next to me, standing there looking at the same stuff like anyone else. He made some comment about how all the soaps looked the same, like just different colors, and I kind of laughed because it was true. That's how it started. It wasn't anything special or like one of those moments people talk about later. We just talked about nothing important. The festival, the town, how boring it gets after a while. He said he had moved there not that long ago, which made sense because I didn't recognize him, and I usually noticed new people. I don't remember how long we stood there, but it turned into walking together, like just naturally moving from booth to booth. He was easy to talk to, like he didn't ask too many questions, but enough that it didn't feel one-sided. I remember thinking he seemed calm, a little too calm, but in a good way at the time. Like he wasn't trying to impress me, just there. We ended up sitting on this curb eating something fried. I think it was funnel cake. And I remember getting powdered sugar all over my jeans, and he pointed it out but didn't make a big deal of it. After that day, we kept talking. At first just texting, then meeting up. It felt normal. We'd meet after I got off work, sometimes just sit in his car and talk because neither of us felt like going anywhere. He didn't talk much about his job, just said it was security work, which I didn't question much. People have jobs. I didn't feel like I needed details. That was the first thing I ignored without realizing it. Not that it was a big deal, but I never knew where exactly he worked. He never said a company name unless I just forgot, which is possible. My memory of that time is kind of uneven. A couple months went by like that. Nothing dramatic, no big arguments, nothing that would have made me stop and think. If anything, he was more consistent than anyone I'd been with before. Always on time, always answering messages, always there. That word again, I keep using it, but I don't know a better one. Then we decided to move in together. It wasn't some big planned thing, it just kind of happened. My lease was ending and his place was small, like barely enough for one person, so we found this rental house not too far from where I worked. I got used to a new routine, which actually felt nice. Cooking together sometimes, or trying to, he wasn't great at it. Watching TV in the evenings. Normal stuff again. That's the word I keep coming back to, and I hate that I can't explain it better. Then there were little things. Not big enough to point at and say, this is wrong, just things. He started checking the windows more. I didn't even notice it as something strange. People check windows, especially in an older place. But it became a habit for him, like every night before bed he'd go around and look out each one. Not just making sure they were locked, but actually standing there for a few seconds, longer than needed. I asked him about it once, and he said he just liked knowing what was going on outside. That was it. It was a little odd, but I didn't push it. It got more noticeable over time. Not just at night. Sometimes during the day, if we were talking, he'd stop mid-conversation and look toward a window, like he heard something or thought he did. A few times I turned to look too, but there was never anything there. I started to feel uncomfortable, like there was something I wasn't fully understanding, but I couldn't figure out what question to ask. He never acted aggressive or anything during those moments, just focused, like he was paying attention to something I couldn't see. Our routines shifted a bit because of that. We stopped going out as much. Not completely, but less. He'd suggest staying in more often, saying it was easier or that he was tired from work. Again, not weird on its own, just added on to everything else. The argument happened a few months after we moved in. I don't even remember what started it exactly. It was something small, I think about money, or maybe me asking more about his job again. It escalated faster than anything we'd had before, like it went from normal talking to him being angry in a way I hadn't seen. His tone changed. That's the best way I can put it. I remember holding my phone during it because I felt nervous, like I needed something in my hands. He kept saying I didn't trust him, which I guess wasn't completely wrong, but it wasn't like that. I just wanted to understand things. Then he knocked the phone out of my hand, like a quick hit. It fell and the screen cracked, really bad, like spiderweb cracks across the whole thing. That moment kind of froze everything. He didn't apologize right away, just stood there like he didn't expect himself to do that. I picked it up and tried to turn it on, but it barely worked. I remember saying, "Are you serious?" but not even loudly. I think I was shocked. After that, he eventually said sorry, but it felt late, like he was saying it because he knew he had to, not because he meant it. I ended up getting a new phone a couple days later. I didn't tell anyone about it. I probably should have, but I didn't want to make it into something bigger than it was, or maybe I just didn't want to admit it. Things didn't go back to normal after that. They got tighter. That's the word I keep thinking of. Like everything in the house felt smaller. He was still checking the windows, maybe even more, and I started noticing he'd lock doors during the day too, even when we were both home. There were moments where he'd seem completely fine like before, and then others where he'd just go quiet and distant. I couldn't predict it, which made it worse. Then that day I came home from work. There was some issue at the shop and I had to stay longer, and I just wanted to go home and sit down. When I pulled up, the first thing I saw was the front door wasn't fully closed, slightly pushed in like it didn't latch. I thought he stepped out for something and would be back, but he never left the door like that. Ever. When I walked in, I didn't understand what I was looking at first. It took a second. Things were off. Chairs moved, stuff on the floor, drawers pulled out, things knocked over, like someone had gone through everything fast without caring. The living room was the worst. Cushions off the couch, one of the lamps broken on the floor. I was just trying to make sense of it in the dumbest way, like maybe I was in the wrong house or something. Which doesn't make sense, but that's honestly what went through my head for a second. I called his name a few times, but there was no answer. That's when I started to notice something else. Something I didn't catch right away because I was too focused on the mess. The windows. They were all open. Every single one I could see from where I was standing. And I swear I remember checking them that morning before I left because of how he always did it. I picked up on that habit too. I know I did. I walked further inside, like I expected him to come out from somewhere, or I don't even know what I expected. The bedroom door was open too, and from where I stood I could see the closet doors wide open and clothes pulled out. That's when I realized something that didn't fit with the idea of a break-in. Some things were missing. Not everything, just specific things. His things. And that's when it really started to feel wrong in a way I can't fully explain. Like the kind of wrong where you feel it before you understand it. And I remember thinking I should call someone, but I just stood there instead, staring at the hallway because I thought I heard something from deeper in the house. I remember I didn't move when I thought I heard that sound. A step, but not clear enough to be sure. I didn't know what reaction I was supposed to have yet. I said his name again. There was no response again. It didn't feel like the same place I left that morning, even ignoring the mess. I walked down the hallway, checking each room as I passed. The bathroom was empty, but the cabinet under the sink was open, and things were just dumped out, like someone looked through it fast. The spare room was boxes opened, stuff from when I moved in just scattered around like it had been searched through. I kept expecting to see him somewhere in the middle of it, like he was hurt or something. I don't know why that's where my mind went first. When I got to the bedroom, I noticed more clearly what was missing. His clothes, not all of them, but most. The ones he wore more often, I guess. Shoes gone. The drawer he kept by the bed was empty, completely empty, which I knew because I had seen him put things in there before, small stuff like keys or whatever he carried around. Even the charger he used was gone. But other things were still there. Things that didn't make sense to leave if he was just packing up and going somewhere. It wasn't like someone carefully moved out. It looked like someone went through the house looking for something specific, took what they needed, and left everything else like it didn't matter. I checked the back door and it was unlocked, same as the front, just not fully open. I stepped outside for a second, just to look around, but there was nothing. I remember thinking how weird that was, like, shouldn't someone have seen something? But I didn't ask anyone at that point. I didn't even think to. I went back inside and just stood there again. Eventually I did call the police. I told them my house looked like it had been broken into and my boyfriend was missing. Even saying that felt strange. They came out after a while. I told them about the door being open, the house being like that, him not being there. I don't remember if I mentioned the windows at first or if they noticed on their own. They asked about him, his name, where he worked, how long we'd been together. That's when things started getting, I don't know the right word, just not lining up the way I thought they would. I told them his name, obviously. I had no reason to think anything about it at the time. They wrote it down, asked me to spell it. They asked about his job next. I told them what I always said, that he worked in security. They asked what company. I told them I didn't know. They looked at me for a second like I should have known, but I didn't. I tried to explain that he didn't talk about it much, that it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. They pointed out that there wasn't really any sign of forced entry, which I had kind of already noticed. The windows were open, but not broken. The doors were unlocked, but not damaged. It didn't look like someone broke in. It looked like someone who was already inside did all of it. They asked if we had argued recently. I told them about the phone. I showed them the broken one I still had. That part felt important, like it explained something, but I didn't know what. It didn't feel urgent to them, at least not the way it felt to me standing there. One of them said maybe he left on his own and took his things, which I guess from the outside made sense, but it didn't match what I saw. Over the next few days, I tried to piece things together. I went through what was left of his stuff, looking for anything that had more information. Papers, mail, anything. There was almost nothing. No official documents, no bills in his name, nothing that tied him to that house in a real way. I realized something then that I hadn't noticed before. Everything connected to him was light, like it could be picked up and gone without leaving much behind. The few things he had were either gone or didn't say anything about who he actually was. The police came back to ask a few more questions. They told me they couldn't find a record matching the name I gave them. At first I thought they meant something was wrong in their system, or I spelled it wrong, but they said no, like there wasn't anyone under that name connected to the kind of job I described, or really much at all in the area. I tried to explain that he had to exist. I mean, I lived with him, people saw us together. But when I tried to think of specific examples, it got harder. We didn't really have mutual friends. We didn't go out much. Most of the time it was just us. I went back to the festival area a few times, even though it wasn't happening anymore, just to see if anyone recognized him from that day. I asked a couple people who set up booths regularly if they remembered him, described him the best I could. Most said no. It started to feel like I was trying to prove something that I couldn't actually show. Weeks turned into months, and eventually people stopped asking me about it. The case didn't really go anywhere. I moved out of that house. I couldn't stay there, not with how it felt. Even after cleaning everything up, it didn't go back to normal. I was thinking about the windows, about how they were all open like that, and I never figured out why. It's been years now. Decades, actually. I've tried to explain it in ways that make sense, like he was lying about who he was and needed to leave quickly, or maybe something happened with his work that I didn't understand. His name, the one I gave the police, how they said there was no one like that. Not just missing, but like he didn't exist in any way that mattered. Everything just feels like slowly disappeared with him. I don't go hiking like as a hobby. It's not like I'm one of those people that wakes up at 5 a.m. and drives out to trails every weekend. This was more of a random thing I started doing because I was trying to get out of the house more. I live alone, so there's not much going on unless I make something happen. So yeah, I started going out to this trail like twice a week, not even that far from where I live. There's a main trail people use, but there are also smaller paths that branch off and kind of just go nowhere, or at least they feel like nowhere. I usually stuck to the main one at first because I didn't really know the area, but after a couple weeks I started walking further out just to see what was there. Just trees, dirt, the usual stuff. You'd hear birds or like branches cracking somewhere far off, but that's normal. I got used to that kind of noise pretty fast. The day this happened, I went in the afternoon, which I sometimes do if I finish work early. Sun was still up, but it had that kind of lower angle light, if that makes sense, where everything looks a little more orange. I parked where I always park. There's this small gravel area off the side of the road. There were no other cars there. I didn't think anything of it. I grabbed my phone, keys, nothing else really, and just started walking like I normally do. Everything was exactly the same as every other time. Same path, same turns, same little spots I recognized. There's this one section where the trees get a bit thicker and the path narrows, and I always slow down there because the ground is uneven. I remember stepping over the same route I always do, like I actually noticed it, which is kind of dumb, but I guess it just shows how normal everything felt at the time. I decided to go off one of the side paths that day. I had seen it before, but never really followed it all the way. It wasn't even really a path. It's like a worn area where people had walked before, but not recently, I think. The ground looked kind of undisturbed, like no fresh footprints or anything. I hesitated, but then I just went for it. I wasn't that far from the main trail anyway. It started off fine. Just more trees, a bit denser, a bit quieter. The ground got a little softer too, like more dirt than packed trail. I walked for maybe 10 minutes. It's hard to say exactly because I wasn't checking the time. I just kept going until I started to notice something off. It was the smell. I didn't immediately think something's wrong. It was more like I noticed something burning. I thought someone nearby had a campfire or something, even though I'd never seen anyone do that out there. The smell got stronger the more I walked, and then I started to see it. There was a car, just sitting there off to the side, like not on a road, just kind of in between trees. And it was burned, like completely burned out. The paint was gone, the windows were either shattered or melted, I don't even know. And the inside looked blackened, like it had been on fire pretty recently. I stopped walking when I saw it. I didn't get too close right away. It didn't make sense. There's no road there, no easy way to get a car into that spot without making a ton of noise or tracks or something. And I didn't see any clear tracks, at least not that I noticed then. I did eventually walk closer. I don't know why I did. I probably should have just turned around right there, but I guess I was curious. The smell was stronger up close, like burnt plastic and something. Not like food or anything, just bad. I looked inside the car, but not like leaning in or touching it. I stayed a bit back. The seats were basically gone, just metal frame stuff left. I didn't see anything inside, no bags or anything like that. It looked empty. Where is the person who owns this? Because it didn't look like an old thing, it looked recent, like a day or two, not weeks. I walked around it a little, just kind of circling, trying to see if there was anything else. And there was a hole, just a hole in the ground, but it wasn't random. It looked dug, like someone had dug it out. The shape wasn't perfect, but it was roughly the size of a person, like long enough and kind of narrow. That was my first thought, which I didn't like at all. It was empty, though. I checked. Just dirt. Fresh dirt, too, like darker, looser. It didn't look like it had been there for a long time. There were piles of dirt around it, like whoever dug it had just thrown it to the sides. A burned car in the middle of the woods and a freshly dug hole behind it. That's not normal. So I decided I was leaving, like immediately. I turned around and started walking back the way I came. After a minute or two of walking, I heard something that made me stop again. It sounded like a car, like an engine somewhere not too far. Which made no sense because there's no road where I was, at least not close enough to hear that clearly. I turned around and tried to listen, but it stopped. I told myself it was from far away and the sound just carried. I don't know, it didn't feel right though. I started walking again. I was more aware of everything, like my steps, branches under my feet, stuff like that. And then after a bit, I heard something else. It sounded like footsteps. Not mine. I mean, I know what my own steps sound like, and this was off. Slightly delayed, or just not matching mine exactly. I slowed down a little to check, and it felt like whatever it was also slowed. That's when I got that feeling, like the one where your stomach kind of drops a bit. I think part of me didn't want to see anything. I just kept walking, trying to listen without making it obvious, which is stupid now that I think about it. The sound happened again, like a step on something dry. I finally turned my head a little. There wasn't anyone there, at least not in the way you'd expect. I didn't see a person just standing out in the open or anything like that. It was just trees and that same uneven ground and a couple of bushes that looked exactly the same as when I walked in. But I swear something had just been there, or moving, or I don't know. I remember listening really hard, like holding my breath almost. I heard it again, just there, like a foot on dirt or leaves, that kind of dry sound. And it didn't match me because I wasn't moving when it happened. That's what made it click in my head that this wasn't just me imagining things. I didn't look back again after that. I started walking faster, like a fast walk. I think I was still trying to act normal, even though there was no one there to act normal for, which doesn't make sense, but that's what I did. The problem was the faster I walked, the more I felt like whatever was behind me was also keeping up. I remember at one point I stepped on a branch and it snapped pretty loud, and right after that I heard another snap that wasn't mine. That's when I just stopped pretending and started running. I was just trying to get back to the main trail as fast as I could. Running in that area wasn't easy either. The ground was uneven, there were roots and dips and all that. I kept going until I recognized the path again, like the actual trail I came from. When I got back onto it, I felt a little better for a second, like I was closer to something normal, but I didn't slow down. I kept running until I got to my car. I could see it from a bit away, just sitting there alone in the gravel area. I don't think I've ever been that relieved to see something so normal before. I got in, locked the doors right away. I looked in the mirrors a lot. It was just empty. That almost made it worse in a way because it didn't explain anything. I called the cops. I don't usually do that kind of thing. Like I don't overreact to stuff, but this didn't feel like something I should ignore. I told them there was a burned car in the woods and something felt off about it. I think I just said I thought someone might be out there. They told me to stay where I was and that someone would come check it out. I waited in the car the whole time. I didn't get out again. I kept the doors locked. When they got there, I tried to explain where I had walked and what I saw. Probably not very clearly, because I was still kind of shaken up. They asked me to show them the direction, but they didn't want me to go back in with them, which I was fine with. They said they found the car I was talking about, and they asked me a few more questions about when I got there and if I saw anyone else. I didn't see anyone. Later on, I don't remember if it was the same day or the next, but it wasn't long after. The car had been reported stolen a few days earlier from a woman. I think they said her name, but I forgot it. She was okay, like nothing happened to her. She just didn't know what happened to her car. That didn't make me feel better at all. If anything, it made it worse, because now there was even less explanation. A stolen car ends up burned in the woods, with a hole dug behind it, and no one knows why. And no one was there when they checked. I asked them if they found anything else, like signs of someone being out there, and they just said they were still looking into it. I didn't push more than that. It felt like they weren't going to tell me much anyway. And the weird thing is, I don't know what that hole was for. That's what bothers me more than the car even. Because a burned car, okay, that's bad, but it happens. People do stupid things. But digging a hole like that in that spot, and then just leaving it empty, I don't know. It doesn't sit right. I think I just got there too early, like something was supposed to happen later and I interrupted it without realizing. I was never supposed to see any of it at all. I don't really go deep into those thoughts because it just makes it worse. As far as I know, no one was caught and no one ever explained why that car was there or what that hole was for. I don't go into the woods. It kind of ruined that whole thing for me. And I know this sounds like I'm overreacting or reading too much into it, but I know what I heard. I know there was something behind me that day, even if I never saw it. And whatever it was keeping up with me all the way back to my car. That's the part I can't really explain away, no matter how much I try to think about it differently. I was always at my computer, and I didn't go out much except to grab food or see my girlfriend. She didn't live with me, but she stayed over sometimes, like weekends mostly. During the week, it was just me, just doing the same stuff over and over. Wake up, sit at my desk. I had cameras set up around the house, which I know sounds paranoid, but it wasn't really like that. The landlord had already installed a couple outside, like one facing the driveway and one near the back door, and I added one inside the garage because I kept some tools and a bike there. Cameras connected to my phone so I could check them if I was out or whatever. Most of the time I forgot they were even there. The garage is kind of important. It wasn't attached directly like you could walk from the kitchen into it. It was like a side access thing. You had to go outside, take a few steps, then open the garage door. There was no other way in unless you forced it, and the door made noise, like not crazy loud, but enough that I would have heard it at night. I'm pretty sure about that. I mean, I used it all the time, so I know how it sounds. Anyway, nothing weird happened for months. I'd just be sitting there at night with the TV on or whatever, and it felt like the whole area just shut off after like 10 p.m. The garage thing happened on a random night. I remember I was watching something, I think it was some long YouTube video, and I had my phone next to me. Sometimes I'd just open the camera app out of habit, like not even thinking, just to check outside. I don't even know why I did that, it's just something I got used to doing. So I opened the garage camera. It was one of those things where your brain kind of lags behind your eyes. I saw something on the floor, like a shape, and I thought I left something there, like a bag or something, which didn't make sense, but that was my first thought. Then I realized it was a person. They were lying on the garage floor, like actually lying there on their side, kind of facing away from the camera. It wasn't super clear because the lighting in there isn't great, but you could tell it was a person. Legs, arms, like curled a bit, not moving. I thought they were unalive or something, which sounds extreme, but that's literally what went through my head because they weren't moving at all, just completely still. I was trying to make sense of it, like maybe it's a glitch, but it didn't look like that. It looked live. I could see the little timestamp moving. Then I thought, okay, someone broke in, obviously, but that didn't make sense either because I didn't hear anything. And also, how would they even get in there without me noticing? Like I said, the door isn't silent. I would have heard it, especially at night when everything is quiet like that. I got up finally, but I didn't rush. That's the weird part. I feel like most people would panic or call someone immediately, but I didn't. I just kind of moved slow. I grabbed my phone, kept the camera open, and went to the back door. I didn't turn on any lights outside yet. I didn't want them to know I saw them. I don't know if that makes sense. The garage was a few steps away, like I said, and the door was closed. completely normal looking. Nothing looked forced or open or anything like that. No sound from inside. If someone was in there, they were either still completely silent or, I don't know. I don't want to say anything dramatic, but it just didn't match what I saw on the camera. I opened the garage door. It made the usual noise, like that kind of creaky metal sound, and I pushed it open enough to look inside first before stepping in. The light inside was off, so I reached for the switch on the wall and turned it on. There was no one there. I was just standing there with the door half open, like waiting for something to move or jump out or something stupid like that, but nothing happened. The floor was empty, completely empty. Nothing that could have even looked like a person. I walked in slowly, checking the corners, behind the shelves, even though there's not really places to hide in there. It's a small garage, you'd see someone immediately. I checked behind my bike, behind some boxes, even opened the storage cabinet for no reason. I went back to my phone and looked at the camera again, still showing the garage, but now it was empty there too. Something was wrong, like properly wrong, not just confusing. I went back into the house and checked every room. I don't even know why, because if they were in the garage and then gone, how would they be inside? But I still checked. Bedroom, bathroom, closets, everything. I even checked places that made no sense, like under the bed, which I haven't done since I was a kid. There was no one. I called the cops after that. I didn't know what else to do. I told them what I saw. Nothing was forced, nothing was missing, nothing out of place. They asked if it was recorded footage or if someone had access to my cameras, like hacking or whatever. But I told them it was live. I watched it in real time. They didn't really have an answer for that. One of them even watched the playback with me. But here's the thing. The footage didn't show the person anymore. It just showed an empty garage the whole time. Like the moment I remembered seeing them on the recording, there was nothing there. I tried to explain that I saw it, like I know what I saw, but it's hard to argue when the video shows nothing. They ended up just telling me to keep my doors locked and call again if anything else happened. For a few days, went back to normal on the surface. I kept working, kept doing my usual routine, even had my girlfriend over one night and didn't tell her about it because I didn't want to sound crazy or freak her out. But I wasn't sleeping properly. I'd wake up at random times and check my phone, check the cameras, sometimes just sit there listening. I started locking everything more carefully, like I always locked the doors before, but now I'd check them multiple times. I remember one night I got out of bed just to check the back door again because I thought I forgot, even though I knew I didn't. A few nights later, this one I can't really explain away at all, not even a little bit. I was in my bedroom, I think around 1 a.m. or something like that. I was still awake, just on my phone, kind of tired. I heard a knock on my bedroom door. The kind of knock you'd expect if someone didn't want to wake the whole house, except there was no one else in the house to wake. I remember thinking it had to be something else, like pipes or the wood or whatever people say, but it didn't sound like that. It sounded exactly like knuckles on wood. And I know that sounds like I'm trying to make it sound dramatic, but I'm not. It was just clear. I even held my breath a bit, just listening to see if it would happen again. It didn't right away, so I slowly sat up, still looking at the door. My phone was in my hand, and I think I almost opened the camera app again out of habit, but I didn't. I just kept staring at the door, waiting for something else. Then it knocked again. Same thing, same kind of knock, like whoever it was knew I was awake and was just waiting. That's what it felt like anyway, like it wasn't random. And that's when I got up, opened the door. No one was there. The hallway light was off, so it was kind of dim, but I could still see clearly enough. The hallway was empty. I stepped out a bit and looked toward the living room, then toward the bathroom, just trying to catch anything out of place. There was nothing. Nothing moving at all. It was like the house was empty except for me, which it was supposed to be, but it didn't feel like that. I went back into my room and shut the door, but I didn't lock it. I just sat on the edge of the bed trying to think. My heart was going pretty fast at that point. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera app. Checked the front camera first. Nothing, just the driveway, empty. Then the garage, empty again, same as it had been. Then the back camera, the back door was open. You could see a thin gap, and I know for a fact I locked it earlier that night. I had checked it twice, like I said I'd been doing that a lot. So seeing it like that didn't make sense at all. You could see the line of darkness where the door wasn't fully shut. I got up again, went into the hallway, and this time I turned the light on. I don't know why I didn't earlier. I walked toward the back of the house, and I could already kind of see it before I got there. The door was open. Just a little, like on the camera, but definitely not closed. And the lock wasn't engaged anymore. I know I locked it. I keep repeating that, but I'm not guessing. I know I did. The floor. There were footprints. Bare footprints, like someone had walked in without shoes. They were kind of faint at first near the door, but then more visible a few steps in, like dirt or something had come off their feet. And they were going inward, not out. I couldn't really process it. It didn't feel real in that moment. Like I was looking at something from a video again, not my actual house. The prints went from the door into the kitchen area, and then kind of faded off. And right near the door, on the floor, there was this white powder. A small amount, like it had been spilled or shaken out of something. It was kind of spread unevenly, some of it on the floor, some near the threshold. I just looked at it and then looked back at the footprints again. I backed away and grabbed my phone to call the cops again. They checked the house again. No one was inside. They took pictures of the footprints and the powder. They asked me if I had any idea what it could be, like if I had anything like that in the house, and I told them no. I don't keep stuff like that. I barely even cook properly. I'm not storing random powders around. Later, it tested as some kind of drug. That stuff wasn't something normal you'd just find. They asked again about the cameras, so I showed them everything. Same as before, nothing useful. The footage didn't show anyone coming in or knocking or anything like that. Just me walking around and the door already being open at some point, but not when or how it got like that. The next day I told my girlfriend everything, and she didn't take it lightly. She actually got pretty upset that I didn't tell her about the first thing with the garage. She said I should stay somewhere else for a while, like with her or something, but I didn't want to leave my stuff, and also part of me felt like if I left, whoever it was would just come back or something. Nothing else happened in the same obvious way, like no more knocking or footprints or anything like that. I started doubting myself a lot, like I was just overthinking everything because of what happened. But then again, the footprints were real. The cops saw them. The powder was real, so it wasn't just in my head. I started checking the cameras even more, like constantly. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and scroll through footage even though I already knew it probably wouldn't show anything, and it never did. Not once did it show a person again, not like that first time. After about a week, I couldn't do it anymore. I packed some things and went to stay with my girlfriend for a while. Nothing followed me after that, at least not that I noticed. The first part, the garage, I know what I saw. I know there was someone there, lying on the floor like they belonged there, like they had been there for a while, and then just nothing. No way in, no way out, no footage, nothing left behind. And the knocking too. That part bothers me more than I expected it would. Because whoever, or whatever, it was, it knew exactly where I was. It didn't knock on the front door or the back door. It knocked on my bedroom door like it was already inside, like it had been inside long enough to know where I sleep. I don't have an explanation for any of it. The police didn't either.